If you've ever wanted to see a magic trick involving a woman's breast and a tube of lipstick, well, I've got the movie for you. Everything about this movie just screams cheesy 80s horror, but done to absolute perfection. If you want typical 80s horror characters, you got them. If you want really bad 80s horror movie dialogue, you got it. If you hardly want any plot in the 80s horror movie, we've all got it here in this one. It's absolutely brilliant. And we're talking Night of the Demons from 1988. And I had such a good time watching this. It was a lot of fun. A hell of a lot of fun. This was right up my street. Right, ever since I've started doing this channel, this is the movie I've been looking for. Right? Now, I'm not telling you that it's a good movie. It's better than some of the others I've reviewed on this channel, that's for sure. But I think it's a perfect movie for to stick on a Halloween. You know what I mean? If you're going to have a night in and watch just 3 or 4 horror movies, I think this one should be in your collection because it's just a lot of fun to watch. And it doesn't take a lot to get into. It really doesn't. So, to get into the plot of the movie of Night of the Demons, there's a group of teenagers, all played by actors in the late 20s, early 30s. Of course they are, because it's an 80s horror movie. Why cast actual teenagers? Well, in saying that, what they get some of the actresses to do in this movie, you couldn't really get a teenager to do, because there are a lot of tits in this movie. Hey, it's not a bad thing. And shut up, before you all complain, it was the 80s. Nobody cared. You could show tits as much as you liked. Okay? Defend the 80s. So yeah, they all play teenagers. It's set on Halloween night and they all want to have a party, as all teenagers do. So they decide that they're going to go to Hull House, which is a possessed old funeral home. So they decide to have a party there, and unfortunately for them, they summon a demon that possesses the house, and then that demon starts possessing them one by one, and there we have our movie. And it is glorious. Glorious. Absolutely glorious. Oh, God. Oh, I loved it. I really did love it. Now, I'll say this. If you're a fan of Evil Dead, and I would probably say Return of the Living Dead as well, check this film out if you haven't already seen it already. It's a good time. It is. And I think the filmmakers, were fans of Evil Dead because there's a lot of similarities in this with kind of camera movement and cinematography. There's a lot very similar to Evil Dead. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, they're paying homage to one of the best horror films ever made, in my opinion. Crack on. But I like the way this film was shot. I think it's very well directed, and I do like the cinematography of this movie. I think cinematography in horror movies are some of the best, to be honest with you, because they've got to be creative in a lot of ways, and you see a lot of that on screen in horror movies, and I do particularly like it here. I thought it was very well done. I also like the makeup effects on some of the possessed characters when the demons, especially the Angela one, which is the main one, is quite creepy looking. And I like the voice to her as well. And I liked a couple of the one-liners that she came out with. She had a bit of personality to her, which I thought was quite cool. And yeah, she was creepy. I mean, if that thing was coming at me down a dark corridor, I would be the same as Reg or Roger, whatever his name is. I'd just literally jump out the window to get away from him. That bit had me howling, by the way. He's just stood there and he goes, "They're not getting me." And he just runs, jumps head first through a window. And as he lands, he's like, I'm not dead. That is me in this horror movie. If there's any character I could relate to in this film, it's him. Because I'd be the same. Anytime there's a demon, it doesn't matter whether I'm stood next to the final girl or not. I'm bolting. I'm getting out of there. I am running. I'm gone. The only difference between me and him was I'd have been well out the house and I would have been over that wall long before they did it. Long before. But that's the only difference. I related to him. And I made up he survived. And that's another thing that I liked in this film as well. Because you have your typical 80s horror characters, and because you've watched so many horror films, you kind of think to yourself, right, he's going to go, she's going to go, he's going to go, he's going to survive, because they're setting it up for him to survive and hair and all this, that and the other. But it switches it around, and there's characters that get bumped off or possessed, whichever way you want to call it. Surprises you. And then the ones that survive, you're like, all right, fair enough. I didn't see that. So I actually quite enjoyed that. I like it when a film surprises me and does that and changes the formula up a little bit. Now, there's one character called Stooge, and he was my favourite character in this, along with Reg. I hope it's Reg. I hope I've got the name of the character right. But he has some of the best one-liners I have watched in these films since I've been doing this review. And the one that stands out for me is, eat a bowl of fuck. I don't know what a bowl of fuck is, but it's funny. That's something I'm going to get on a t-shirt. Eat a bowl of fuck. I think that just suits everything. Just suits every scenario you're ever going to come into in life. Just eat a bowl of fuck. You know, I loved him. I thought he was the best actor of the bunch. I really liked him. He was entertaining. Now, to slightly get into my negatives of the movie, it does come down to the acting. The acting's not great. But with these 80s horror films, especially these cheesy ones, that they know they're cheesy. They're not taking themselves seriously. You know, they're not trying to win any Oscars. You can forgive it for that. You know what I mean? You can. You know what you're getting into. You know the acting's not going to be that great. And it isn't. Especially with the final girl. I thought she was the worst of the bunch. I really did. Like, her delivery was just the same. Whether she was happy, scared, confused, whatever. It was just the same. I thought she did a terrible job. And she was actually... her character was really annoying throughout the movie. Like, I really wanted her to get bumped off quick. You know. What else? Oh, man, I forgot to mention, like, what this film is famous for. And I just wasn't expecting it. There's a certain part of this film where there's a girl that's possessed by a demon, and she's playing around with her lipstick over her face and, like, doing lipstick down here, and gets the lipstick to a nipple and actually puts the tub of lipstick up through a nipple into her breast. Why? It's a fantastic effect, though. Like, really well done. But, yeah, I literally watched that scene and went, eh? Like, okay, yeah, whatever. All right, I'm cool with that. Fine. And it does, I will say, after the possessions have took place and there's only about like 3 characters left, the film does slow down a lot, and it's basically just watching the same people walking around Hull House, down corridors, going into different rooms and trying to get out and stuff, and it starts to drag a little bit, because I feel like it throws everything at you in like the middle part of the movie, and it's got like a decent pace and it's going well, and then it just seems to take a bit of a dive till it gets to the last act of the movie, and then it slightly picks up again. So it did drag a little bit. But honestly, other than that, I don't have a lot of negatives for this movie. I generally really enjoyed it, and I think you will enjoy it too if you haven't seen it already. If you're into these 80s cheesy horror movies, you are going to have a good time with this one. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind you'll enjoy it. Honestly. So, for Night of the Demons from 1988, guys, I'm going to give it... I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. I'll give it a 3.5. I think that's a fair score. Because like I say, I don't think it's a good movie, if you know what I mean, but it has a lot of fun to it. It has stuff that I'm looking for in 80s horror films anyway. So I'm going to like it more than what the average Joe is. But if you're a horror fan like me, which I'm sure you are because you're watching this channel, I think you'll love it. So I think a 3.5 out of 5 is a fair review. So anyway, guys, as always, take care of yourselves and each other. And thank you for joining me for this review.